Good afternoon, dear friends. This is Ruslan Belov with you. The energy truce, so to speak, continues, while the shelling of up to 200 drones from both sides also continues. We see this with you every night. Moreover, the Russian army has now changed its tactics. If earlier, say, 10 drones were sent to 5 cities, now everything is flying to one city, one target. Therefore, we see a different result. Well, on the front lines, the fighting continues in some areas. This is especially true for the border with the Belgorod region. So let's analyze the situation on the front lines together. Let's open the map. So friends, yesterday was a very tough day on the border with the Belgorod region. And not just the day. Last night was also quite tense. Now, after 3 days, it is already obvious that this is not some sort of raid, not a probing, and certainly not a DRG, sabotage and reconnaissance group, as was claimed by the Ukrainian side on the first day of the offensive. This is a full-scale offensive operation by the armed forces of Ukraine. Most likely, this is the very offensive that Syrskyi promised back in winter. An attempt to open another front, and still the main task of the armed forces of Ukraine here is to stretch the forces of the Russian army. Because look, initially they only pushed towards Demidovka. They pushed, received a serious rebuff, and I posted footage of destroyed equipment on my Telegram channel. Therefore, in addition to the attacks on Demidovka, which have not stopped for the 3rd day now, they also began attacking Grafovka and Prelesye. They had no success with Grafovka and still don't. You see, this red line is the defense line. It consists of 3 rows of dragon's teeth and minefields. So no matter how much they fight on this section, they have not been able to overcome this defense line, but they managed to infiltrate in the area of Prelesye. This is actually the most difficult situation. And this is the only section of the Belgorod front where the armed forces of Ukraine were able to expand their control yesterday. That is, this triangle, so to speak, did not exist yesterday morning. Now, as you can see, they have managed to advance 1.5 kilometers from the border. And the total territory they occupied yesterday is just this triangle, about 2 square kilometers. And in general, at the moment, the entire front line along the Belgorod border is, let's measure it together, about 6 to 7 kilometers. The armored vehicles of the armed forces of Ukraine approach the border, drop off infantry, and immediately leave, while the infantry then infiltrates into the tree lines, gradually accumulating. Again, I said yesterday that footage appeared online of a killed woman, an assault soldier of the armed forces of Ukraine. Today, another such video appeared online from another area of hostilities. So thinking that they will have big problems with personnel, no, they won't, at least not now. Of course, sooner or later the accumulation effect will work, but now, where there are problems, they calmly throw women into battle, give them pants, an assault rifle, and send them forward. I also see a lot of comments like, why aren't strikes being carried out? Where is the aviation? Where are the FABs? And so on. Look, aviation is working, artillery is working. There is footage of FABs, hits, and many 200s killed in the armed forces of Ukraine, but this is what a meat grinder assault looks like, when they push forward regardless of losses. Now the question is, the accumulation of manpower is happening. What next? What to expect next? How deep can the armed forces of Ukraine advance? And in general, will they be able to? Will the armed forces of Ukraine manage to break through deep into the Belgorod region? At the moment, it is obvious that they are stuck on the first line of defense. Again, the assault has been going on for 3 days, and they have only taken control of about 8 square kilometers in total. And even then, as you can see, it's just fields and tree lines. And not even control in the direct sense. They have dug in and, are waiting, sitting there, waiting for a FAB to hit them or not. That is, for them, it's now a lottery. Although it should also be said, the armed forces of Ukraine are also not giving peace to the nearby villages within 5 to 6 kilometers from the border. Yesterday evening, Governor Gladkov spoke about this in his address. That is, a lot of drones are flying and hunting for any transport. It doesn't matter if it's military transport, civilian transport, or an ambulance. Therefore, it is very dangerous to be here, and residents are strongly advised to evacuate. Because if the situation worsens, and this is a direct quote from the governor, if something happens, evacuation will become impossible. Yes, the offensive of the armed forces of Ukraine is getting bogged down in the defense. They are moving slowly, with great difficulty, but just look at the situation around the village of Prelesi. You can already see with the naked eye that the village is semi-encircled. And I am sure that today, during the day, they will throw about 100 assault troops here for a decisive assault. Will the defense hold under such pressure? It's hard to say, but it's certainly not guaranteed. Moreover, from these positions, if the armed forces of Ukraine manage to break through this defense line or clear the minefields here and advance through them, they will undoubtedly rush towards Repukovka. This is already a relatively large village, which they could further use as a logistical base for accumulating resources. And then a push towards Krasnaya Yaruga, which is now their main goal. In general, Governor Gladkov's recommendations for evacuation are not without reason. In the area of the village of Demidovka, the situation is somewhat easier, but not by much. It's not shown here, but yesterday there were reports that the AFU managed to infiltrate this tree line. It turns out from the western side of the village, and they continue to accumulate forces there for a decisive assault. So far, all the attacks have been repelled. The important question here is how many losses in manpower the AFU are willing to take before retreating, because their losses are colossal. Yesterday, for example, a FAB 3000 hit their gathering point in the Sumy region, right near the border. But you understand, it's instant chaos and no one can survive such a strike. But as I already said, considering that they are ready to throw even women into assaults, it seems the AFU are not counting their losses. In general, let's summarize the situation on the Belgorod front. Over 3 days of intense fighting, the AFU have managed to take conditional control of about 8 square kilometers. And mostly in front of the defense line, the situation is very different from the events in the Kursk region. Again, I showed you yesterday, and quite clearly, but let me show you once more to reassure those who are very sensitive and prone to panic. There's no need to panic. Let's switch to this map. Scroll to August. 3 days of offensive, from the 6th to the 9th. You see how much control the AFU had at that time, about 250 square kilometers of territory, and now only 8 square kilometers. So don't worry that the situation will repeat like in the Kursk region. No, it won't. But as they say, we shouldn't relax either. And let's end the report on a positive note. The good news is on the Pokrovsk direction. Here, Russian troops counterattacked and managed to retake positions in the village of Shevchenko. Again, the map is not fully updated, as even Ukrainian military experts write that only the northeastern outskirts of the village remain under AFU control. So again, only the northeastern edge of the village remains under AFU control. That's it. Thus, their offensive here has stalled, and they are rolling back. And in general, on the entire Pokrovsk direction, the initiative is once again shifting to the Russian army, specifically the center group of forces. Also, a bit east of Mirnograd, the Russian army has made some good progress towards the settlement of Tarasovka. Moving to the South Donetsk direction, there is progress by the Russian army between Volnoy Pole and Shevchenko, with advances along the high ground. This particular area is elevated relative to Shevchenko, and after the encirclement of this settlement from the south, it will be very difficult for Ukrainian troops to defend in this area. Well, that's all for today on the situation at the front. I'll say goodbye to you now, wish you a good workday, and we'll meet again tomorrow.